I'd like you to think back to a moment in time when you've travelled in conditions like this. Think about that moment. How did you feel? What were the sensations like? The critical question is, when conditions are like this, do you travel faster or do you slow down? Hi, I'm the Futurist Dave Wild. And if you're like most of us, when the conditions are like this, you slow down. You lose confidence because of your lack of clarity. Now, this is what travelling forward into the future feels like most leaders, for most organisations, for most teams. I used to think that it was my role as a futurist to clear that windscreen, until I realised how ridiculous that is. No one can see the future perfectly clearly. However, what you can do is if you learn to think like a futurist, you can shift the view ahead from feeling like this to feeling like this. And it's a critical difference, that ability to spot signals of change that others are missing. You train the mind to see what others might be doing off to the side, or what new pathways forward might be, while others may end up feeling far more constrained with tunnel vision. So how do you actually shift your mind to think in that sort of way? Well, it requires a different way of working as a leader. So often we talk about best practice, what's proven to work, and that's absolutely critical. But if you think about the time and work involved to arrive at best practice, quite often that's also old practice. It may be a decade out of date. So you also have to have a willingness to step forward and explore the unknown, the unproven, because that's where the future begins. Another way of thinking of this is, as a leader, you have to be managing business as usual, because that's what's proven to work, that's what funds the future. But you also have to have that split perspective where you're stepping forward yourself and inspiring others as well to also run businesses unusual in parallel. Now, for you as a visionary, as an innovator, this might not feel like a difficult thing to do, because you're often inspired by blue sky possibilities ahead. However, if you think about what you're asking of your team, what often people who aren't so comfortable with this idea of stepping off the edge might feel like, they may feel more like you're asking them to follow you out into this sort of space here. And if you think about the times we're living in right now, for many people it's not just that. It actually feels like they're living in a world like this. And as a leader with a number of decisions and options and possibilities and changes confronting you, this is how it can often feel. So how do you shift from this kind of environment? Well, the ability to be a future-ready leader is key to moving forward. If you think about what it means to lead, you're taking people from the past, old ways of working, and you're moving forward from the present forward into the future. People's willingness to follow you depends on their beliefs and behaviours, many of which can be regressive and hold them and hold the organisation back. But also within us all, we also have progressive beliefs and behaviours which can lift us all upwards. Now, in terms of moving upwards, you can also look at how change occurs. So it begins on that S curve. It doesn't happen all at once. However, it gains momentum. Then at a certain point, that innovative new way of working is no longer innovative. However, if a team or organisation clings to that, that can then pull them downwards. So we have to be able to step forward through that difficult unknown space to find that next S-curve of growth. Now, your ability to move people through that space depends on understanding where they're at. So you'll have people who are highly resistant to change, and I'm sure you can think of them right now. Then often you'll have people or entire organisations that change due to a reactive way when they're forced to change. With strategic planning, reflection is critical to it. However, the problem with reflecting back on the past in order to create the future is often we're reflecting on times that are very different to what's ahead. So this is why we've seen the rise of more responsive ways of working over the past decade, with methods such as design thinking and agile. Now those are critical. However, they're not enough to lead us through that revolutionary space to find those future-ready ways of working, so that instead of being disrupted, we're creating sustainable growth for all. So how do you step forward into that unknown And more importantly, how do you inspire and equip others to do the same? Well, if you think about it, when you go out into an unknown space, you're given equipment to help you work your way through it. However, in this case, we're not talking about equipment that goes on the outside. It's equipping people on the inside with the skills and capabilities needed to thrive. For example, if you look at the work of the World Economic Forum and the shift they identified between 2015 to 2020, new leadership skills are critical to this world we're now operating in. For example, you'll see that there's 2 new skills in the top 10. Cognitive flexibility, the ability to push your mind around, and emotional intelligence, the ability to have a diverse perspective to understand the world and the feelings and needs of others. And then you can also see the fastest rising skill from 2015 over the past 5 years. Creativity has become more critical than ever before. The ability to see those signals, to learn from others, combine it all in a fresh new way to create that future. Now, you'll hear a lot of talk about the importance of having a different mindset. However, I've realized as a future that actually our mindsets are the problem. So if your mindset is set, then it's fixed in a specified place or position. So rather than needing a new mindset, it's about taking what we've already got and learning to flex it far more. Because flex means to bend, move, or stretch in order to exercise. So if I've got a Mindflex, I'm far more ready for whatever the future brings to be able to flex and adapt and adjust with agility. So that whole ability to Mindflex in order to be future ready requires a distinct way of thinking. It's the ability to push your mind in 4 different directions and to be able to lead your team to do the same. Now, one of those modes is progressive thinking, the ability to think forward into the future, to see signals and possibilities that others may be missing. At the same time, you need to be far more willing than many to stand on the shoulders of giants and leverage information that's already known. But I'm not talking about the distant past, I'm often talking about the recent past. So being able to say that change that's just happened now, who's behind it, how are they thinking, how are they leading in a different sort of way. What this then does is gives you greater possibilities for your expansive thinking. And it's always been critical. The people who change the world are the ones who are dreaming, who are thinking of the impossible. However, as a leader, you know it's critical to move from ideas to action. However, action can actually be a way of thinking. So active thinking, building to think, experimenting, is where you take the impossible and you make it possible, because that's where impact lies, is in between that dimension. Now, that then gives you the ability to take chaos and complexity and for yourself and for those around you to shift it into confidence and clarity. And this isn't just about thinking, because we know the world changes not just through ideas, it's the actions that result out of those ideas. So mind flexing then enables you to build a set of future-ready skills. And those skills can give you the ability to do things like predict change that others don't see, or to have a greater impact on the world around you. Ultimately, that gives you an opportunity to create a brilliant future for all, and we'd love you to be a part of it with us.